Hello, community.
I think it's safe to say that Freelancer has changed Hitman in a lot of ways, and one of them is the alterations to the maps. With targets now being completely random, some maps are improved while others are even worse. So let's talk about it. And let's begin with my favorite map, Whittleton Creek. Oh boy, when it comes to Freelancer, this is by far one of the best and easiest maps to play. Not so much for showdowns, but on regular missions, it's just perfect. It's a small map, just like my first girlfriend, it's completely flat. Everything is within reach. You have both a medic and lethal poison in Helen West's basement, sedative poison near the construction site, a crowbar near the tractor, and etc. Everything you need, this map can deliver for the most part. It's a very simple map, it's a very fun map, at least in my opinion. I truly believe it's probably the easiest map you can play on Freelancer, and that's not a bad thing at all. In regular Hitman, it has the drawback of the clues and Nolan Cassidy, but in Freelancer, I see no reason as to not have it all the way at the top of the top tier list. Next up is Colorado, oh boy. Even on Freelancer, Colorado remains unredeemably bad. Definitely avoid at all costs if you can. It's a map where you can get spotted from literally everywhere, even in places where you would think you're safe. In reality, someone's always watching. So performing illegal actions is almost impossible without getting caught. There is not one disguise that rules all, as the barnyard/shooting range will require a demolition disguise, the explosive range a specialist disguise, and an elite disguise if you want to enter the house. But that house is a nightmare on its own. Very difficult to enter and exit, let alone maneuver. A total nightmare of a map in every way imaginable. Just avoid it if you can. If not, play at your own risk. Next up we have New York. New York is like your dick. It's small but it's fun to play with. One thing that's unique about it is robbing the vault will give you free mercies, about 10k if I remember correctly. It does have the negative of needing keycard unlockers in certain areas, but at least getting keycards isn't quite so difficult. Lots of freedom of approach, and honestly, as long as you know the map at least somewhat decently, you can pretty much thrive on it. It's one of those maps that I think I would put gameplay first over looks, even though it's a great looking map too in my opinion, so it's gotta go all the way at the top I guess. And we're off to Haven Island, good lord. If you've seen any of my videos regarding Haven, you know very well what I think about this map. However, in Freelancer, new targets, the mansion area is no longer required to get into all the damn time. It's improved a little bit. From my personal experience, I would say it still has issues. I mean, guards and NPCs can still see things from ridiculously far away, but it's not a must-avoid map at all costs, like it used to be. I'd say yeah, it's a bad map where I would put looks over gameplay, but you can have fun on it, and for the most part, you can beat it without too many problems. Next up, for the number 5 spot, we have Berlin. I had a joke prepared for this one as well, but let's face it, a German joke is no laughing matter. There's nothing funny about this map, it's just pure badass. It will take you a little bit of time to get used to it and learn how to maneuver it, but it's not that hard really. The backer disguise pretty much rules all, as long as you can get your hands on it. You can pretty much go everywhere with very little enforcers to worry about, but the ones that are there can be a bit tricky as they're positioned in difficult to pass sections, like right in front of a door or something. I love doing showdowns in Berlin personally, it's great for it, pretty easy to isolate targets for the most part, and tons of accident kills opportunities are available for you pretty much everywhere. Top tier map, no doubt about it. Next up, Santa Fortuna. Talk about a rumble in the jungle. I've been to Santa Fortuna more times than I can remember. It seems that every time I start a campaign, and it's a total mishmash. I mean, sometimes your targets are pretty simple and easy, and others they're damn near impossible. The map itself is a bit of a mess too, pretty difficult to maneuver in some areas, and the fact that they have removed the propane flask that was right behind the car shop is a total joke. The propane flask was so useful, and is so useful anytime you have to deal with shitty targets, and now the closest alternative is down the stairs next to Rico's mansion. Overall, I would say Santa Fortuna has changed for the worse more so than for the better, and even before it wasn't a great map necessarily, so yeah, bad it is. But next up, we're off to a good one, Miami. Oh boy, I'm getting excited now. You see, Miami's kinda like dating a stripper. It's intimidating at first, but once you get a little used to it, you can do pretty much whatever you want. This map, at least for me, has the best gameplay out there. There is nothing you can do on this map. It's a big map, sure, but there is a lot of ways to maneuver it, and no matter where you are, there is always room for shenanigans. It's my personal favorite map for showdowns. All of the targets I've faced so far have been very decent and reliable. You can go pretty much anywhere, shoot only your silent assassin. And I'm not saying that because you should do that, but because the map is built so well that you can do that. Whatever your playstyle is, this map can handle it pretty well. You can make your way from one part of it to the other from different locations as well. I just can't say anything too negative about it. It's not as self-sufficient as Whittleton Creek as far as giving you useful items, but outside of that, it's a pretty perfect map. Now we're gonna go back to the start. I'm putting Paris in the fine category. And there's a couple of reasons for that. First of all, one of the startups is all the way up to a sniper nest, and there are 2 guards right in front of the gate, making it extremely difficult to leave the area. It handicaps you straight out of the gate, forcing you to waste minutes just dealing with those 2 clowns. On top of that, I'm no fan of suit-only enforcers, and there's a bunch of them around in Paris, so that's a no from me. Paris has always been a fine map, very fun and easy to traverse, and to be honest, I do enjoy playing it a lot, but freedom of approach can be rather limited in comparison to what we're used to from Hitman 3 maps. And with the new additions for Freelancer like more guards and cameras in really annoying places, I can't say it does any real favors to the map. Next up, we have everybody's beloved Sapienza. Okay, it's time to offend some fucking fanboys. Sapienza is just fine. It's not great necessarily. First of all, just like Paris, it was one of the absolute worst startups ever. In fact, it's much worse. It takes place near the boat exit over at the ruins, and getting out of there is ridiculously difficult. Suit only, you're pretty much fucked, and with a disguise you're not much better, as every guard and gardener are going to become enforcers to your disguise. And they're directly in front of the exit, so you're screwed either way. And talk about wasting time getting started with Paris from the sniper nest, this is much worse and takes much more time to get through. On top of that, getting into the lab area can be overwhelmingly time-taking. There is one entry that requires an explosion, originally created for the breaching charge when they thought the breaching charge would be a must-bring item, but it didn't pan out. On top of that, as mentioned earlier, the ruins area is terrible, really difficult to get into and out of. I mean, listen, I love Italy just as much as the next guy. Beautiful city, women, motorcycles and cars. And this map is by far the best of 2016. But for Freelancer, I cannot justify putting it any higher. It's a good map, but it has too many consistent weaknesses in order to be great. Next up is Argentina, Mendoza, for that matter. Mendoza has really evolved through the years. At first when it came out, it was a bit shite, to be honest. I believe it's on my top 10 worst maps, and for a good reason. But in Freelancer, no Tamara Vidal, we have a new suit-only exit, and I've noticed that some annoying guards have been removed. The one in front of the cinema is now gone, or at least he was for me. So there has been improvements made, but Tamara was a horrible target. Now, however, in Freelancer with new upgrades and fixes, I have no problem putting it up there as a great map. Plus, they won the World Cup, so how can you argue with that? Dubai. I like Dubai, not as much as the Eastern European sluts who sell their souls to be there, but it is a good map. A bit underrated, probably, but it is pretty good. Tons of ways to get from point A to point B, though you can say that about pretty much every single Hitman 3 location, really. With the elevator shafts, especially, there's a lot of great ways to maneuver around it. Dubai lacks any serious drawbacks, to be fair. It's just a really good Hitman map. A bit boring maybe, but still, a good map. Hokkaido. Probably the most overrated map in Hitman history, and imagine the territory that takes in. I mean, you can say the same thing about Sapienza, but Sapienza is a really good map. Hokkaido, on the other hand, is both kinda small and difficult to maneuver. The tight corridors, overfilled with armed guards. Getting anywhere on the map takes forever. You're constantly gonna use those electronic key hackers, as many important doors are locked, and getting an actual keycard is both difficult to do and can be quite risky. I think a lot of people fall in love with this map entirely based on the way it looks, and forget entirely about the gameplay, but gameplay does matter, and Hokkaido is good, but not great, at least in my opinion. Once you learn it, you can be quite fun and enjoyable, but there is no way I can put it anywhere near the top. That would just be ridiculous. Marrakesh. It sucks. Targets, at least from my experience, tend to be very unwieldy. You have some targets roaming at the center of town, making it pretty hard to get a hold of them. On top of that, you have the Swedish consulate building, which is awful in every way. The only door that is convenient to get into is from the garage, and it requires an electronic key hacker or some sort of an electronic card. It's a huge blowback to have to bring an entire hacker just for one damn door. It's something that should have been changed a long time ago in my opinion, but even outside of that, the whole building is built with almost no maneuvering whatsoever. It's a total mess. The school area is not much better, and the less said about the shisha cafe the better. Overall, Marrakesh has always been a bit of a mess, and I can't say Freelancer makes it that much better, so yeah, I gotta put it at the bottom, or at least near it. Mumbai. Where do I begin? It's big and it's pretty hard to beat, that's what she said. In my opinion, Mumbai is by far one of the hardest maps in Hitman history, no doubt about it. It's a huge map, but with a lot of twists and turns. Difficult to sort of keep a track on all of the shortcuts you need to remember, or all of the important items, especially now as some of them have been removed. And also the camera positions have been changed a bit too. I have to put it as bad for no other reason besides the high difficulty. However, if you are someone that plays the shit out of Mumbai and knows the map like the back of your hand, then for you it's a great map. However, for the rest of us, it tends to be a bit awkward at times with targets, and trying to remember ways to maneuver it is no easy task either. I hate putting it as bad because I don't personally believe that it is, but just because of the pure difficulty of the map in combination with the unpredictability of Freelancer, I simply cannot have it any higher. Next up we got Chongqing. Anybody who complains about this map or thinks they are failing because it's a bad map, I've got some bad news for you. It ain't the map that's lacking, it's your skills that are lacking. You have no reason to ever complain about this map. It has so many different ways you can traverse it. I mean, I like to play suit-only Stunt Assassin when I can, right? And for some reason, I've been sent to Chongqing a lot. I mean, the game just loves sending me there. And I can confidently tell you that it's probably the easiest map to beat suit-only Stunt Assassin. The way it's created, you can bypass almost any obstacle almost effortlessly. Sure, it takes a little bit of time to learn your ways around the tunnels and different ways around the main building, but there is no reason to ever fail on this map. Zero. It's as top tier of a map as it gets. Next up, we gotta talk about the Illuminati in the Isle of Sgail. It can be very tricky. I mean, you gotta know the map very well in order to not waste like a ton of time, because the way it's created can be very disorienting. You can get lost very easily. Finding your targets can also be very difficult at times because certain locations on the map, much like a girl's orgasm, can be difficult to reach. I would say it's probably the second hardest location behind Mumbai, so this will depend on your skill level, but overall, I really don't think I can put Isle of Sgail as a fine map. Even ignoring the design, it is very overcrowded with NPCs, it's difficult to find useful items, so I would put it as bad, but as I said earlier, that depends on your skill level. It can be up or down depending on who you are. Going back to the UK, we got Dartmoor. Much like the rest of Hitman maps, there have been changes made to Dartmoor as well. One of the big ones is the addition of cameras, which I'm not a fan of. They also moved some NPCs around to make it a bit more difficult, which I really don't understand. Why would you take a really good map and actively make it worse for the purpose of Freelancer? I mean, Dartmoor wasn't that easy anyways. You needed to know the map very well in order to not get lost on it. You have to know exactly how and from where to maneuver it. I mean, the new additions don't ruin the map necessarily, but I don't think it's top tier anymore. Bangkok. So, not a great map, obviously, but is it one that you have to avoid? I mean, yeah, you are very limited, but you can't get anywhere on the map suit only, let alone with a disguise. It's not that difficult of a map really. I mean, with a little patience, you can get anywhere and never get caught doing it. Of course, the camera room being as inaccessible as it is a real big blowback to it, but there is a new exit on the side, so that's a good thing. They've fixed some of the bad stuff about it, like targets avoiding the toilet near the restaurant and etc. But again, you are somewhat limited by the electronic key hacker, which you will need quite a bit of to move around the rooms. I personally think it's better than Marrakesh, just because there isn't as much running around getting from point A to point B, but overall Bangkok still belongs at the bottom. Ambrose Island. Finally we got on the last map, and Ambrose Island does give you all the tools you need to succeed, but it can be quite difficult putting them together. It's a map that you need to play with 100% concentration and focus, otherwise you end up getting absolutely wrecked. As I said, it does give you all the tools in terms of freedom of approach, but it's far from easy to actually make them work. Getting caught is hard to avoid at times, so it's dealing with targets as well. And we don't even need to talk about the ruins area, as that whole place is an absolute mess. It's a fine map, definitely, if you're able to play it at full brain capacity, but I wouldn't say it reaches greatness necessarily. With that, we've ranked all maps and come to the end of the tier list. Honestly, I can see a couple of maps moving up and down, but I think overall it's a pretty accurate tier list. I'm sure some people will strongly disagree, but that's okay, you can have your meltdown in the comments below. Press like if you enjoyed or if you agree with most of them, subscribe for more content coming very soon, and until next time, thank you very much for watching.